Hello everyone, and welcome back to this video, which it's my great pleasure to interview the three winners of the Global Ethics Prize for Sustainable Future, of which I have the great honor to be co-president of the jury now for many, many years. It's always been my pleasure to read the essays of the prize winners, but also of anyone who's writing in. Young people under 35, they speak with a clear voice that some of us that are in the baby boomer phase may have forgotten, unfortunately, as life takes charge of everything. Now, today, I'm speaking to Florian Barras, who is from Switzerland, and based there, actually, he's a graduate assistant at the University of Lausanne. And he wrote an essay which got the second prize ex aequo on the case for a more sustainable banking regulation framework. I find this very interesting because banks are very traditional. Now, they do have a role. We always see, traditionally in history, the banker, the doctor, and the lawyer as having to be somewhere parentis in locos for people. You should trust them, but that trust went away. And in my work for CFA Institute, this is something we've been speaking about a lot. Trust has gone away. So the role of a bank, which is really to be underpinning the economy, underpinning society, transform smaller into bigger possibilities, went away. And can we get it back? Because we have a very, very big climate change issue, and that is a small part of that ESG, let alone environment as a whole is a challenge with water scarcity, with many other issues, fires, etc. Social issues are very important and going to come our way quite significantly with huge migration, with problems of living in desertified areas, geopolitical issues. So again, the challenge of ESG for that traditional bulwark of society and the economy, banking, is really important. And Florian, what really struck me in your essay is you went back to a report from 1987 by the UN on our common future. And that was really quite inspirational what you wrote and how you blended it into your essay. And I'd love you to tell us more about this.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, actually, its sustainability dates way back. Of course, the Brundtland report is often the date that is originated for sustainability, sustainable development, but we can take it back even further prior to that. And the main issue with all of this is that we've known for a long time that we have had issues with climate and a lot of influence on it, yet the problems just intensified.
Yeah, and I think, you also mentioned the Bank of International Settlements, who warns climate risk to being a green swan, not the black swan that we all know, but a green swan, and not about if, but when. Right. How do you see banks reacting to that? What have you seen in the changes that they've been making already?
Well, the big change that I've seen so far is that the discourse actually went from small steps to encompassing sustainability that tackles now GHG emissions ahead. So they've been more ambitious. So that's the first point. Now, the issue is that I'm not sure that the green swan is understood at the extent that it should be, which means it's a major risk. And it's not a risk, as we say, it's going to realize or not. It's something that is going to happen. And it's just a matter of the intensity of how it's going to happen. And we have a choice to choose the intensity.
Yes, and I was a banker for many years, and I remember in the early 2000s, when I would come to the board with a project finance for windmills in Spain, for one of the major energy suppliers, I was almost laughed out of the room. This was just not sustainable in terms of the pricing would never come anywhere near to what the risk was. And of course, that is a short-term view. And it's also a view of not looking at that responsibility you might have in that there might be a cost involved, but that you might have to put that cost. To be fair, of course, this is a very difficult issue. When I was working at the European Parliament in the middle of the financial crisis, there was a big discussion about what is the role of banks, to your point. Should they serve society? And this is also something that came up at the Vatican in discussions. What is the role of finance? Should it be for the good of society? And you put the case very well, and I'd love you to share some points on, what is that awareness of that banks should act for the good of society and should be included in that economic thinking?
Right. Well, there's something that you said before with the traditional way of banking, even the doctor, people that were the figure of the community, right? So the people that were the foundation of what the society was. And somehow we've kind of lost track of this during the last few 10, 20, 30 years with international banking. And I actually met a banker several years ago that inspired me because he was still this figure of the banker that knew everybody in the community. And to me, this is like the essence of what banking should be. It is serving the community. Of course, by serving the community, you get a reward, but it's not the main purpose to get a big reward. It's about serving the community. And I think that banking should still be like this.
And I think that is a challenge for regulators because they need to help along banks to be more aware of that path. Can you explain what your vision is for regulators to do?
Right, because the problem is if sustainability isn't profitable, then banks will not tackle it, right?
Exactly.
So regulators, their role is to be able to say, we have to tackle it, even though it's not sustainable. Now, the issue is that even regulators now are quoting sustainability as something that is sexy. So the narrative of regulators is essentially the same bias as banks today. So it's a real issue, right? But the role that they can have is to really assess that, okay, sustainability is a cost. Now, how are banks going to tackle it? How are they going to take into account this cost?
One way is, and actually there was several prize editions back, a regulator from the UK FCA won the first prize. And he talked about people in finance having ethical CVs. So the good you do is shown to the world and carries on. It's not just on a CV what you worked in project finance or whatever, but your ethicality. Have you acted ethically? And I think that is also one way of pushing it. You talk about value-based banks, you talk about virtue ethics. And I also recall, talking to a professor from Bologna University who helped found the first ethical bank in Italy. And they had to change the clauses of what a bank should do because a bank should make profit. And so they had to change because an ethical bank, there are costs involved. So that is to that point. But maybe in a final comment from you on virtue ethics and what is your advice on how to include this more broader sense of ethics for banks?
Well, I think, for example, the CV is a very interesting idea. And we should work with the framework that is currently the one we have, right? We have this framework that is individualistic, and we have to be able to show what each person is contributing to. Now, I think that virtue ethics is also about community and the way we are part of something that is bigger than us. And in this sense, I think that is also about questioning the framework, the ethical framework on which we are based on. So it's not only about what each individuals are going to be gaining from tackling sustainability. It's about what the whole community is gaining from it. And I think that virtue ethics is a framework that allows to be able to tackle these kinds of ethical framework.
And maybe more mutualization.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe more mutualization. This is something that was used, nothing new under finance. Huh? This was used 300 years ago. It's coming back again. But
exactly.
Maybe that is a way forward.
Florian, and virtue is very long ago, yeah.
I am sure that you're going to have many reactions to your paper from readers. I would welcome everybody who's watching this, get in contact with him if you want to talk more. And again, very well done. And thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you.